Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new episode of Over the Top Talk. Actually, not an episode today because I'm going live. And, I never come on these, podcast live streams alone. So today I'm joined by the creator of Hawk Sports YouTube channel, Max. How we doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I really appreciate you having me on here. This is one of those events where you don't just get excited the night before. This is something you get excited for, weeks, even a month or two out. Very excited to be going to the event. Very blessed that Dana's brought such a great card 5 hours from me. I really appreciate how good of friends we've become. We haven't met in person yet, but this guy is as good as advertised as he is on camera. Really good dude. I can't thank you enough for having me on here today, Owen. I'm glad we're finally getting to break down some UFC, have a little bit of fun, and get to talk to your viewers, man. Really appreciate it.
Perfect. And, before we kind of get into the prediction part of it, you're actually attending the, event next Saturday. You said it's close, so I'm assuming you're driving over there, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be a 5 hour drive. We're just going to go up there after my girlfriend gets off work on Friday. I get off at 1 o'clock on Fridays. I'm unfortunately a normal human being right now. We're working 40 hours a week, but whenever me and Owen make it big time, we're not going to have to work full time. We'll be doing YouTube full time. But as of right now, working full time. She'll get off at 4:30 though. We'll make our way up to Chicago. Um, Hopefully meeting up with Diego Ferreira, who is the featured prelim on this card. I got some custom shirts made for him and his wife. So I'm looking forward to meeting him. Should be seeing him on Friday night at the Fighter Hotel. So if there's anything I can send over for you guys as well for content, I'd love to do that and get some answers or get some questions and answers for you as well.
Perfect. And obviously, we have a pretty good card ahead of us. Always excited for the huge, pay-per-views. Not that the fight nights are bad. Fight nights are awesome. Apex, even the event last night was awesome. I'm
Yeah.
specifically looking forward to this. We'll talk about it later, but specifically just because of Drakus versus Hamzat, that's a matchup I've been waiting for a long time. Drakus is down to fight everybody. I love fighters that just come out there and want to fight whoever the hell is the next contender. So,
Yep.
is there a fight on here that you're most excited for before we get into it?
Obviously, with me just mentioning Diego, obviously that's a big fight for me. To be honest with you, since it's more personal for me, that I can call Diego one of my friends. That's going to be my main event of the night. I'm definitely looking into that one. But I think there's a few I want to point out on this card, though. Obviously, DDP and Hamzat. I was telling Owen off camera, if you took the top three for me at the beginning of the year on what I want to see in the octagon this year as far as main event, pay per view. I'd want to see Tom Aspinall, John Jones. That's obviously not going to happen. Islam Ilya, that's not going to happen either. They're in two different weight classes. Number three for me though was Hamzat and DDP. So it's honestly a blessing that is happening in Chicago this Saturday. God willing that nothing happens, especially with Hamzat having some sickness issues in the past and having to pull out. Them switch some cards around too and some matchups because of weight issues as well. But something I do want to point out, as of right now, I believe Rizaboyev and Brian Battle are the second fight of the night. If you have that as the second fight of the night, I think that just kind of shows how awesome and how well put together this card is. You also have Chase Hooper, who's on the prelims as well. The dude's 5-0. I think right now at lightweight, he hasn't lost. I just think that from top to bottom, if you're going to Chicago and you're going to go watch this event, there's just bangers nonstop for 6 hours. And that's what I'm most excited about. But definitely to go off the question you asked, Diego is definitely the fight that I'm looking forward to the most.
Perfect, man. Just before we get into it, anyone watching on my TikTok over here, we're live on Over the Top Talk on Instagram and YouTube and Twitch right now. So make sure to check this out. I'll be looking over there, but mainly focus on this screen. And for everyone, watching my channel, Over the Top Talk, I do it with Anthony. He's not here because he's more my WWE guy. I love that guy to death, but he kind of leaves all the UFC stuff to me, which I'm fine with. I love talking UFC. So On the YouTube right now, we're currently only 9 subs away from 100. So if you're watching, make sure to go sub to us. We've been grinding it out, clips after clips over on our Instagram. Our Instagram's almost at close to 2,000 followers at this point. We're gaining followers every single day. Me and Anthony appreciate all you guys watching our content. We try and post every day. You'll see stories from us. So, nevertheless, though, start with the first matchup here, which had to get changed. I don't know who Deonna Barbosa went in for. I think it was JJ Aldridge, if I said her name right. I think she was originally supposed to be in this fight. And I'll just say my prediction is easily Deonna Barbosa. That's just only because she's been on my podcast. She's treated me like family. She said when she's one of the fighters that has come on and said if me and Anthony are ever in Las Vegas or go down there, she'll let us use her gym, her everything. She'll bring us in like family. So I always got to ride with the fighters that come on my podcast. So I'll ride with Deonna Barbosa. How about you, Max?
I'm exactly with you on that one, Owen. I know that she's been so kind to you, and I'm one of those guys. If you're friends with my friends, I'm probably going to be loyal to you as well. If you're rocking with my people, I'm rocking with you too. So I'm going to go with her. I know she is a slight underdog here. Corinne is a slight favorite. She's a very solid grappler. She was already on the card. Like you said, Barbosa is taking this on short notice, so that's definitely something to take into consideration. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, Barbosa's a solid grappler. I think she's a little less chaotic, a little more consistent, and I think her striking needs to evolve a little bit to help her, evolve the MMA game. Because at the end of the day, it's like Drake has just been saying, this is not a wrestling match on Saturday night. This is an MMA match. But I just think that Deonna is tougher. I think her grappling is going to help her get this done. And I think that she is going to win this fight by decision. I think that her plus 3.5, I think that's probably already minus like 200 or minus 250. I think that's an absolute lock, though. I think she's for sure going to win a round. At the very least, I don't think that she's going to get finished here either. So I'm going with Barbosa as well.
Yeah, and the issue is, I mean, I obviously can't, sports, but I do have all the apps because I like to look at the lines, who's the underdog. The toughest part about this sport specifically is that anything can happen at any moment. Someone can get striked, You can go in there as a huge underdog, hit a nice uppercut, and you've won the fight even as an underdog. I always love to look at that stuff though to see, who's walking in as the underdog. I did see Deonna was an underdog. I think the Aldridge was as well. But yeah, it's hard to kind of. I like to look at the sports, lines and all that, but like I said, anything can happen at any point. So moving on to the fight that you mentioned is the second fight of the card, Brian Battle. Then you got Ruzi Boyev. I'm terrible at last names in general. Like I said, Brian Battle, when I saw him on this, early prelim, I was like, damn, because I know Brian Battle, he's on a complete tear right now. I think he's 13-2 if I looked at that correctly.
Yeah.
Once again, I think he's the favorite to win this. I'm also going to go with Brian Battle. I think he's an amazing striker. Whether it's KO, I think we could see a Brian Battle by decision, but I'm going to go with KO here for Brian Battle. But I'll move it to you to talk about this.
Yeah, pretty much since Ruziboyev lost last year in the co-main event against Joaquin Buckley, I was there for that. He has not lost since then. He's done very well. We're fast forwarding a year now. That was in May, I think, of 24 that card happened. He's done really well. Dude's a solid grappler. He's game on the feet as well. Obviously, I'd rather be on the ground, but I think Brian Battle's consistent pace moving forward, wanting to be in a dogfight, wanting to absolutely get in dude's face I saw Joaquin Buckley do that to Ruzaboyev last year in person with my own eyes. I'm not saying that Brian Battle's on the same level as Buckley right now. Obviously, the rankings show that, but I just think that Brian Battle's going to win this fight. I hope he does win the fight because I think he will say something absolutely hilarious to the Uzbeks on the mic afterwards. I think that'll be hilarious for everybody to see that. And also, I do want to point out that Battle does double Ruzaboyev's strikes per minute on the feet. So if Brian can keep this fight standing and stay in his face, I think he's going to find him in a successful position to maybe KO him, if not win the decision for sure, like you said. So I'm going with Battle as well.
And moving, down the card, we got Edson Barboza versus Dragar Close. My pick here is Edson Barboza. I know he's had kind of an up and down. I always look at their, fights they've had previously. I know he's I think his last fight was a loss, and then he had 2 wins before that. So he's kind of having one of these up and down roller coaster tears here. I'm going to go with Edson. I think he's a great grappler, striker. If we have a 3-round fight, I think he takes 2 of the rounds, loses 1. I could see him winning a 2-1 decision here. But I'm going to go with Edson Barboza by decision, whether it's 2-1, 3-0. I just want to see him pick up a win. His last fight was a loss. I hate to see fighters lose, especially when they're on that roller coaster of an up and down type of situation. But I'll pass it to you to talk about this.
Absolutely. Once again, Owen, I think I'm right there with you. I'm going to go with Barboza in this one. People are going to look at Barboza and be like, dang, he's been around the UFC for a long time. He's getting old. The thing is, though, Close is also old as well. So I personally haven't seen anything from Barboza to say he's washed. I believe the last fight that you're talking about, I believe he lost to Lerone Murphy. I could be wrong. I'm almost positive his last fight was a loss to Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy's obviously someone we're going to be talking about later on in the co-main event. Dude's undefeated, so a highly respected fighter there in Murphy's case. But I think Edson's just going to get this one done, man. Once again, kind of like what I just said with Brian Battle, if Barboza can stay on the feet, keep his distance, use his kicks, I see a path to victory for him here, even with him being a 39-year-old now. The dude's an awesome vet. He's been around the UFC for a long time for a reason. So give me Edson Barboza.
Yeah, man, I'm a huge fan of the vets. I like to see the vets kind of pick up wins towards, the end of their careers. So definitely a huge fan of Edson Barboza in this fight. Moving to a fight that I'm, excited for because I like, one of the main men on the card, and that's Chase Hooper versus Alexander Hernandez. I'm a huge Chase Hooper guy. When I was talking to, we're friends with Terrence McKinney. Chase Hooper was a name that I brought up that I want to see him fight because I think, it'd be a great matchup.
Yeah.
This fight specifically, I'm going to go with Chase Hooper. He's on a complete tear right now with his last win being against Jim Miller. He had that little funny post interview too. I like his, mic skills and all that. But
he said he was gooning in quote, I believe. He said he was gooning last camp.
Gooning.
So whatever he wants to, we'll elaborate that on. Yeah, Chase is a character, man. He's a character.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Chase. I think I've watched his last, 2 or 3 fights now, and obviously he's on a tear. Winning 2 of those by submission, his most recent by unanimous decision against Jim Miller. But I think he's a great striker. This is another one I see going the full 3, just because, I think Chase Hooper is a heavy favorite for this as well, which that doesn't surprise me at all because of, the tear he's on. I don't know how many wins he has in a row, but when I looked, it was like 5 or 6. But I'm going to go Chase Hooper here by unanimous decision. I don't see it being a split, but I want your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up right where you just left off. Basically, I hate to keep referencing stuff that happened a year ago. Obviously, a lot of stuff can change between now and then. I was able to watch Chase Hooper last year compete in St. Louis as well. Absolutely dominated Slava Claus, dropped him with an overhand, and then just absolutely dominated him on the ground. I think something that you got to watch in this fight right here is Chase is a 6'1" lightweight. Hernandez is listed at 5'9". So quite difference there in height. That is definitely going to play a factor as well as this does get to the fence. Look for Chase to be crafty on the ground. I mean, every single time I see Chase Hooper fight, I'm like, he's getting better. He's adding more tools to the bag. Maybe some could say that it's a little bit disappointing that he wasn't able to finish an older guy like Jim Miller compared to his age. But I see Chase getting this done. I think the dude's on a tear right now. If not after this fight, look for Chase to be having a lightweight fight next for a top 15 spot. I think he gets this done by sub or decision, either way.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, I want him to pick up this win, and I really do see Terrence being a potential next fight for Hooper.
Yeah.
Um, to kind of fight for, they're both kind of fighting to get into the actual top 15. So I think it'd be a nice kind of entrance to the rankings. I don't know how you feel about that, matchup.
Yeah, I think that's a great matchup. Obviously, I feel like a casual fan would probably turn on the TV, and if Terrence McKinney's fighting, they're going to expect him to knock somebody out pretty quickly or him get knocked out pretty quickly with his past. He's obviously worked on his defense since then. That's why he's had so much success as of late. But people don't realize, though, like Terrence's background is wrestling, and he is very good on the ground. And I was glad he was able to showcase that on International Fight Week against Slava Claus. I actually did bet on Terrence to have a first-round submission win as well. That's just the type of stuff, though, that I feel like a casual fan, they'll look at Terrence and be like, he's got power in his hands. He's really good on his feet, which he is, but he is also very dangerous on the ground. I think a grappling exchange between Chase Hooper and Terrence McKinney would be fireworks. And if you say no to that, then, you just need to probably go watch boxing. I think that'd be a fantastic fight. I'm obviously going to side with my boy Terrence McKinney on that. I don't have a personal connection with Chase Hooper. I do like him. People say that Chase Hooper's from the hood. He's one of the hood boys in the UFC. Just making fun and being funny with him. But, yeah, I think Terrence is on another level right now. And if he continues down the path he's on right now in life, gotten very serious. He has a son and a daughter now. He's taking a lot of shit more serious than what he did in the past. And I'd like him to win that fight. And I don't be surprised if you see Terrence McKinney in the top 15 in 2026.
Perfect. And moving to another, one of our female fights here, Jessica Andrade versus Lupi Godinez. Lupi's been she's not a friend yet. I've been trying to get her on this podcast because I really appreciate when she's gone on so many of my friends on here's podcasts. So, like I said, I always let me just fix my headphones here for a second. They get connected to my phone.
Oh, you're good.
There we go. Perfect. So yeah, like I said, Lupi's she's gone on so many of my friends' podcasts. I've been trying to get her on. Huge fan of Lupi. She's another one, like I said, who's she lost, but in her last 3, I think she's 1-2 right now. Her last, if I'm correct, yeah, her last fight was a win, I think in March. I'm a huge fan of Lupi. Hopefully, she picks up the win here. I think it's gonna be one of those close fights, though. Andrade has a lot of fights in her. I think she's had like over, 35 career fights, however much. So obviously, fighters like that usually don't go down without a fight. I'm gonna go with Lupi here, whether it's unanimous decision, split decision. I don't think it's gonna end with anything crazy like a submission or knockout finish, but I'll go with Lupi by decision here. How about you?
I'm also with you right now. I mean, me and Owen didn't talk about this too much pre-record, but so far we're sticking with the same picks. Lupi just has a significant advantage on the ground. She's 3-2 in her last 5. I believe her last fight, she told her corner, maybe it isn't her. So if you're watching this live stream, feel free to fraud check me on this. I believe she told her corner that she had to take a shit in the middle of that fight on the stool. I think she told her corner she had to take a shit, and then she ended up winning the fight. So if you got to take a shit that obviously sucks competing in the moment, and you had to take a shit, and she still pulled out the victory. So Jessica Andrade, very decorated athlete in the UFC. Lucky to be able to watch her in UFC Nashville, my first ever event I went to in 2023. But I think Loopy just has a significant advantage on the ground, and I'm going to take her to win this fight.
Yeah, and for this next one, moving down the card, I'll let you start because maybe you're better with names, but I'm terrible at names. So if you want to introduce these next two fighters we got.
Well, so we got my boy GM3 taking on Michelle. Um, this is a banger. I am actually kind of pissed at myself. I didn't. Oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss. Sorry if I'm not allowed to cuss on here.
You're good.
I'm a little upset with myself that I didn't feature this one either because this is kind of another one of those fights where you're like, this is a banger. Mikhail joined the Fighting Nerds. Been training with them. Obviously, everybody's seen how much success the Fighting Nerds have had over the last year or two. Pratez's loss against Gary in the main event in Kansas City earlier this year is the only loss that they've suffered as a team yet with their core four. So Michelle's obviously been working a lot. Very, very technical striker, very dangerous on the feet. He will look to close the distance and hit shots. But my boy GM3 is going to get it done as an underdog. If he gets this to the ground, I think he's going to have a significant advantage on Michelle. Obviously, like I said, he trains with some high-level guys at the Fighting Nerds, more specifically Kyle Barallo, who did defeat him earlier in his career, and he has now joined him as a teammate. But GM3 is just a dog. He's going to grind it out on the ground. He's going to put Michelle in bad positions if he does get it there. He never quits. If he does end up quitting, it's his body. It's not his mind. And the only thing that I can think of to where this fight's going to go one of two ways. If GM3 can get it to the ground and hold him there and look to get into some dangerous positions for a submission, he will win this fight. If it stays standing and he struggles to get it to the ground, it could be a rough night at the office. But I'm going with my boy GM3. I was just talking to him an hour before this show started. Hopefully we get him on the channel before the fight next Saturday. I think he gets it done as an underdog. I've picked a lot of favorites so far, but I'm going with GM3. I think he's going to get it to the ground and dominate.
Yeah, and specifically, like you said, I'm also going to go with GM3 because I like solid matchups like this one specifically where these two guys, when I'm doing my kind of little research I do before all of these, I noticed they have a crap ton of fights between the two of them. I don't know what it is combined, but I know they both have an amazing amount of fights between the two. I love watching fights where, it's two experienced dudes, whether it's standing, like you said. That's where Michelle is good at. Like you said, GM3 gets him on the ground. I like his chances here. I could definitely see him also, GM3, winning this by split. It's definitely going to be a dogfight, like you said. And like how I mentioned with the amount of fights between the two of them, none of them are going to want to go down without a fight. I'm going to go with GM3 here by split decision. Like we'll probably see like a 2-1. But yeah. And, before I mention this next fight, anyone on TikTok watching, once again, we're live on YouTube and Instagram right now. Also Twitch, if you want to go over there. Over the Top Talk is the username, no spaces. Appreciate you guys. I haven't been able to look over there. On YouTube over here, we have my pal Joe Panther. He does amazing content over there. What's up, buddy? I've gone on his thing. He interviews, wrestlers from all across the world. He's got great content over there. So thank you for tuning in to the UFC side of things for Over the Top Talk. And once again, we're 9 followers away from 100. We're grinding it out every day, like I said. So I'd appreciate if you hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, like this live specifically. And this next matchup, I'll, let you take it as well. Because, I recently saw that you had Diego Ferreira on your podcast a few days ago. I saw the clips. Obviously, you talked to me off camera about him. So I'll let you kind of run this fight before I kind of get my words in.
Well, I appreciate that, Owen, and I'm going to try not to talk about this fight that much because of how excited I am. But right here, this is what I brought the prop for, ladies and gentlemen. This is what Diego Ferreira is going to be getting on Saturday night. Right here, we're going to get a W. Um, he's going to school King Green. I'm going to be completely honest. King Green is arguably coming off the most brutal knockout of the year so far, besides maybe Elijah Smith's that happened last night in the Apex where he picked him up and slammed him on his head. Rufy absolutely kicked King Green's head off earlier this year. Both of these guys have been in the UFC for a significant amount of time. One of my questions was to Diego, why is right now the right time? And he goes, we're just outside of that top 15. We're probably in that 20 area for the lightweights as far as ranked. I think it makes sense for us two to get in there. That's two guys that are game two. No disrespect to King Green. He's an absolute gamer. He always comes to fight. There's not going to be a boring King Green fight, but there's not going to be a boring Diego Ferreira fight either. The dude absolutely pressures the shit out of people, constantly picks shots at a good range, is able to transition to get guys down on the ground as well if needed. I think Diego is going to out hustle, going to have better cardio than King Green. I think he's going to move forward as well and put King Green on the back foot. And I see my boy Diego getting a finish in round 2 or round 3. I think he's going to have the better cardio.
Yeah, and I'm also gonna go with Diego here. I know King Green. I watched a lot of his fights. He always comes. The issue that I have with him is usually he turns into a highlight, but it's usually a highlight on the opposite side, whether he's getting submitted like this fight against Patty. It's a fight I think he lost by a whale kick, but he always somehow ends up on like this huge. Yeah, he always ends up on some huge highlight reel. Yeah, and like you said, Diego's trying to, enter the rankings. I think this is a fight. I really like this matchup for him, just because of King Green. He's kind of on that. I think he's on a 2-fight losing streak at this point. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Diego here. Whether it's submission, KO, decision, I always ride with friends of the podcasts, friends of friends. So I'll ride with Diego here, hoping to see a huge win. And yeah, I'll definitely look forward to it. I always repost when I see fighters win. I'll repost on my Instagram. So once again, anyone who's watching, Instagram's Over the Top Talk. We're rolling lately, so we put a lot of good content out, specifically stories. You'll see me repost if Diego gets that win. Definitely will repost that. Possibly maybe even get him on the podcast if he pulls out that win, or either way, I don't. But kind of moving on to the other side of things, Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. And my issue with Kai, or I don't have an issue, but I just don't like how they threw him immediately into a title shot. I just don't think that was like these undeserved title shots all the time. Who shouldn't get one? Who should? I know he had a tear wherever he was. I know he was on a tear. I'm not really good with the promotions he was on, but his last fight, obviously him losing to Pantoja. I have him, winning against him here. I think he's amazing on the ground. Like I said, against Pantoja, though, it's just, Pantoja's on a whole different level. I have my issues with that fight being made in the first place, but I'm gonna go Kai here. I think it'd be another decision because Tim Elliott's another guy like we've been talking about. A lot of the fighters on this card specifically actually have like a lot of fights in them, so it's gonna be a war. Tim doesn't go down without a fight. I've watched a lot of Tim Elliott's fights as well. I haven't watched too many of Kai's fights, because I try not to watch other, promotions as much, but I'm mainly set on the UFC. But I'm going to go Kai Asakura here by unanimous decision. I think he'll pull out all 3 rounds here. That might be a hot take, 3-0 unanimous decision, but I'll take your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so this is one of those. big reason why I'm actually going to the event is because of fights like this. I don't know what's going to necessarily happen. I see both sides. I will start off with saying this though, Owen. I don't think Kai should be a 3-1 favorite. As of this morning, I looked. Kai was minus 285. He was thrown in there with Pantoja, like you said, lost. Pantoja's an absolute killer. In my opinion, probably top 3 right now in the UFC. The dude is just constantly getting disrespected, not getting the credit he deserves. The dude is, I mean, he's one of the best in the UFC. He just doesn't have the best mic skills. That's okay. He's a very humble guy, good role model, obviously, for Brazil and the rest of the UFC community. Um, but Tim Elliott is 7 years older than Kai, 2-year layoff. Had some weird personal issues going on. I believe like his teammate had sex with his wife on wedding night or something like that. Like I don't know the story there fully. So if once again, if you're in the chat right now watching this, could be totally wrong, but I can't make that stuff up to you. I believe what I saw is true. Um, but Tim Elliott's game, man. He's a gamer. He will stay in your face the entire time, kind of like what I was saying with GM3. He has a great, great ground game. Kai is also a very, very established guy. If he wasn't established, he would have been thrown into a title shot immediately inside the UFC from the other promotion. So that just kind of shows where his respect is at as far as the MMA community and the higher ups of the UFC. Um, the only thing that scares me with Tim, though, if he is going to come forward and he's going to pressure, he has to watch out for Kai's speed. I think that that is going to be a big problem. You have ring rust sometimes, or octagon rust, I guess, in this case, with it being the UFC. Kai has no problem putting himself in harm's way to look for a finish, too. I think this is an absolute fantastic fight to start the main card. Um, I'm going to go with Tim Elliott, though. I think that he has had this layoff. I normally don't pick guys that have had that ring rust because it does matter. The sport moves so fast, but Kai is going to have to show me that he is at the UFC ranked level, and I'm very interested to see what he looks like against Tim Elliott. If Kai goes out and beats Tim Elliott, please don't come back and shit on me. He is a 3-1 favorite right now. But do not be surprised if you see Tim Elliott surprise people on Friday night. Should be a very competitive fight, though.
Perfect. And just before we, move to the next fight here, we have Enzo, who gave, you a shout out over at Hawk Sports to go.
Oh, my guy. Enzo was my high school teammate. Me and Enzo had that connection, though. He has some Argentinian blood in him. I'm a big Messi fan, so me and him used to watch Argentina games back in the day. Absolutely love Enzo. If you're still on here, love you, brother. I'll give you a fist bump through the camera right there, brother. Appreciate you tuning in.
Perfect. And for everyone watching, I'm always looking at the comments. We appreciate all you guys that, show up every day to these live streams or anytime I do them. But with no further ado, we got Jared versus Michael Page, and I've always been a huge fan of Michael Page. This is another fight where I just can't wait for it. Michael Page, obviously coming off of a huge win against Shara, which was, I think that kind of blew people out of the water a little bit because in that fight against Shara, he looked amazing.
Yeah.
He looked, I think, the best he's looked in a while, so I think he's going to bring that momentum into this fight against Jared. I've always been a huge fan of Michael Page. I specifically with him, I like how he's willing to fight kind of anyone that's thrown in front of him at this point. So I'm going to go with Michael Page here. His last couple of fights have gone the whole way decision. I could see him pulling out a decision win here. Obviously, both guys pretty decent on the feet. And I also like Michael Page's kind of fighting style he's been running. He ran against Shara, where Shara, I think in that fight, if I'm remembering correctly, he was Michael Page was putting pressure on him, and he was kind of backing away a little bit. I think Michael Page, like I said, brings that momentum into this fight. He's also going to pick up another win. He's one of the vets here as well. So I'm going to go Michael Page here. I think he's going to win by either split decision, unanimous decision. And I'm just ready for a huge fight between these two. I love them both. So hopefully see a war. But I'll let you run with your prediction.
Absolutely. And I think the big reason why I'm on here today is because me and Owen think a lot alike. I do like both of these guys. Jared Cannonier is the teammate of one of my good buddies, Trayshawn Gore, who competed last weekend. Obviously, lost an unfortunate decision there, but he still has one fight on his contract, so he'll be looking to get one back there and get in the right direction. So shout out to Trayshawn Gore. Um, Man, this is tough for me. This is really, really tough for me. I genuinely do love both of these guys. I watched Jared be the main event last year against Nasruddin Imavov in Louisville. Well, that is the main reason why I'll never like Jason Herzog again. I hate Jason Herzog. I don't know too many people who actually hate a UFC official. I do not like Jason Herzog. I think he's terrible. I don't think he needs to be officiating the UFC. That was a terrible stoppage. Just want to go ahead and throw that out there. Sorry for the small rant there, Owen, and anybody else watching. Um, Both of these guys are trending in the right direction, though. Last time we saw Jared out, he got a huge win over RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez. Looked like he was going to get finished in the first round. Then he showed that he's a UFC vet for a reason, showed he could push through adversity, gets the finish later on in that. And obviously with MVP, man, I mean, you could genuinely say that he might be the most confusing guy on the roster. I don't think that people know what they're in for until they step in the octagon with him because nobody can mimic what he does or what he's doing. That is also a big reason why DDP is in the position that he's in. We'll obviously talk about that in a little bit. But my thing with Jared is if Jared can close the distance and land his power punches, he could potentially hurt MVP here. He has solid grappling defense as well. If MVP did look to do anything there, but I'm just going to say right now, both of these guys are older. I don't think anybody has a youth to an old advantage here, but MVP is extremely accurate and very powerful with the way he fights. I think MVP by decision, but don't be surprised once again if Jared Cannonier clips him. That's my official prediction. I don't see a finish in this fight from either side, but dang, this is so tough, man. I guess I got MVP decision. I guess that's what I'm going to have to rock with. But like I said, if Jared Cannonier wins, I'm not going to crap my pants in the seats. I won't be surprised. So that's what I got there. Both high level guys, though. Extremely blessed. I get to watch both of them share the cage Saturday night.
Yeah, and moving to Joe Nail versus Carlos Paredes, and just first of all, I mean, Carlos, I mean, he was on a tear, before he went in faced Ian Gary, which, Ian Gary's on his own tear right now, so him losing that, I wasn't too shocked, but at the end, I mean, I think he was losing most of that fight, but at the end, he was able to, land a couple nice shots on Ian Gary. Actually almost finished him, I think, with like 20 seconds left, but wasn't able to. I think Ian Gary kind of crawled away because, I think he was up a bunch of rounds. But I really like these two men on the feet. I do think Carlos picks up the win here. My issue always with Carlos, well, I guess, I don't know, how, in camp, I know he, smokes a ton. I don't know if he still does, but I know he's famous for smoking a ton of cigarettes in camp.
Yeah.
Obviously, this only being a 3-round fight won't, make any difference. But I'm gonna go with Carlos here. I think it's gonna be another decision. I've had a lot of decisions on there, but won't be surprised that most of these end in way, KOs. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to go with Carlos here. I think he's going to pick up a decision win. Like I said, whether it's 2-1, 3-0, Carlos by decision. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Owen. I mean, once again, this is a fight. I'm not trying to glaze here, man, but this is why I'm paying money to go to this event. This fight was originally scheduled for UFC 314 in Miami, and unfortunately had to get canceled. That's why Carlos was able to step in a main event slot to face Ian Gary at UFC Kansas City. I was also there for that as well, so I got to see how that unfolded. That last minute, Carlos absolutely could have won that fight. I think every fan there knows that Carlos just had some low IQ there at the end of that fight. Carlos has looked back at that fight now and he's like, man, if I could have just kept my distance and not let him crawl and try to wrestle him, I would have probably knocked him out or got a TKO and finished him. You know what I'm saying? Um, with that being said, Carlos's cardio, that was an issue, obviously. 5-round fight, looked a little hesitant at time to use energy, but this is a 3-round fight. I think that plays a lot into Carlos's advantage. Carlos is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. I'm going to be siding with Carlos Prates here. Jeff Neal is an absolute dog, though. Another guy kind of like Pantoja. Doesn't really say a whole lot, doesn't talk a lot of shit, doesn't say anything that's going to go viral on the UFC or on social media, but he's a gamer, dude. Very, very dangerous southpaw. Both guys are going to be dangerous. I know everybody's looking at Hamzat and DDP as the fight of the night. Do not be surprised if this fight gets fight of the night, though. These guys are going to be here to swing. Not going to be a whole lot of grappling going on. If it is, it'll be on the Neal side, trying to grapple Carlos, I think. But this fight should stay standing for 15 minutes if there's not a finish. I'm going with Carlos. Give me the fighting nerds, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, and before we get to the co-main event, I do see you guys on TikTok. You know, you guys are sending me love, even sending me, some gifts over there. So I really appreciate you guys over there on TikTok. But for our co-main event here, which was just added, I think a couple weeks ago, because we were talking about it, Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico, which I think was supposed to be Aaron Pico versus Movistar. I think that was the fight that was supposed to be on. Or I think Movistar was supposed to be fighting
It's supposed to be an Abu
card.
Dhabi.
Yeah.
Yep.
Abu Dhabi, that was what it was. Okay, yeah. Which Movistar, he's having his own. I've, kind of finished with him at this point. But with this co-main event, I was kind of hoping it would be a little bit better. I know kind of months ago they were talking about, I think, Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. I think that was like the rumor, that was like huge rumor for this event, but obviously didn't end up happening. We have Lerone Murphy. I think right now he's sitting at 16 wins, 0 losses, and then 1, I think, tie or whatever the hell. And I think if I'm correct here, is this Aaron's first UFC appearance? If I'm looking at that right.
It was Aaron's debut.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be.
And yeah, that was supposed to be the fight, and then they removed it because other issues. But I know Aaron spent, if I was looking at that, I think he spent a lot of time in the PFL, which is where, a lot of the fighters come from now, is that PFL little organization they got over there. I know he's on a tear, so is Lerone. So it's another one of those fights where technically someone's always got to go, even Lerone has that, one tie or whatever's on his record there. But I really don't know what to expect from Aaron. I haven't seen too much of his, fights that he's had. I just know he's on this complete tear. I've seen Lerone plenty of times. I think Lerone is the underdog actually in this fight, because I think it's technically a short notice for him. I don't know if it's a short notice, like 3-week thing. Usually with these guys who have never lost, they're obviously relentless. So I don't expect Lerone to go down without a fight. I think I'm going to take Lerone for this, just because I don't know too much about Aaron Pico. Not that, nothing against him. I just don't watch other products sometimes. Sometimes I do, but I'm going to go with Lerone here. But I'm going to take your thoughts on this matchup for the co-main event.
So this is tough. This has been the one that I've actually been dreading talking about on camera. I've actually talked to Lerone Murphy before. He's been very kind to me. I haven't talked to him in a while. And whenever the fight got announced, I was like, no shit. That's why he's not texting you back anymore. The dude's been working for this co-main event slot. He's been wanting to get in the spotlight for the UFC. Obviously, his last fight, he was the main event against Josh Emmett at the Apex, I believe. But he's been wanting to get in the national spotlight. He's felt like he's been disrespected as far as him being undefeated and still not being in the top 5 yet. Um, with Pico, I have an inside source that Pico was supposed to come into the UFC and get rid of Masvar. A lot of people, especially the casuals, do not like watching him fight. They think he's very boring. I think that's why the UFC is probably not giving him a title shot yet. I'm not saying he's boring. I appreciate all aspects of MMA, but I'm just telling you guys from an outside perspective of what I've looked at and what I've been told. Pico's dangerous, very, very dangerous. A lot of people haven't watched him fight with him not being inside the UFC yet. This dude is an absolute gamer on the ground. I'm talking like scary dangerous. The guy he has grown up training against all these other years outside of the promotion. Um, Dagestan guys from Georgia, all these different guys coming into gyms, to get the work in, to get some rolls in. And he's just made people look stupid. So I have an inside source on that, and that's what the plan was for the UFC, for him to come in and take Pico out. I think that's what their plan is now. I think that they are trying to get rid of Lerone Murphy. I don't think Lerone's boring. I wouldn't have reached out to Lerone if I didn't like him as a fighter, but the UFC thinks that Lerone is boring. I see the comments and the sections on posts and stuff like that. Um, this fight's going to be a banger, though. These are two high-level guys. I think whoever loses this fight should not be disrespected in any form or fashion. I think they should still stay in the top 10 no matter what happens. Pico's not going to be ranked yet, obviously, because he hasn't fought inside the UFC, so he won't have a number by his name. But I think both these guys are top 10. But whoever wins is probably going to be top 5 and potentially have a title shot next. Oh, my gosh. I don't know. I see a decision here. I don't think that there's going to be a finish. I think there's going to be a lot of good transitions on the ground. I think there's going to be some good striking on the feet. I think both of these guys are really high level. If I have to go with an actual pick, though, I get hesitant with these guys that haven't been in the UFC yet, but I know what Pico's capable of. I'm going to go with Murphy, though. I'm going to go with Murphy. He's a slight underdog right now. Murphy's been fighting against guys in the UFC for a while now. He's been under the banner. He's got to shut Pico down, though. Don't be surprised if Pico gets a submission win, though.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the main issue with these guys that kind of come over is, kind of not going to use Kai as an example, but I guess I will. Kind of how they fight in other promotions, pick up a lot of wins, but the real, competition is when you enter the UFC. I think that's, UFC has some of the best competition. I don't, the issue is trying to, putting Pico against Movesaar kind of already tells you, that he's pretty good. They're not just going to throw you in there with a top, 3 guy if they know you're just going to get tossed around. But definitely looking forward to this. Definitely looking forward to Pico specifically because I've never seen any of his fights. So to watch it will be pretty nice. But to kind of move on to our main event, which I have had issues when this was announced. I've had issues predicting who was going to win this, which I was also looking at the odds, and I know DDP, I think he's like a plus 185. I really don't, I don't believe in my heart that he is an underdog in this fight. I think DDP is going to shock a lot of people next weekend. Obviously, his most recent wins coming against Strickland and then Adesanya. But Hamzat with his last win being Whittaker with a, gross chokeout that, ripped Rob's jaw in like 2 pieces. But this one I've had trouble all week because DDP is one of those odd guys, he doesn't really have like a certain, striking thing. He doesn't really have like a ground game. He kind of just hops in there. I actually like his fighting style a lot because you don't really know what he's gonna bring at you. He can, he's huge too. I don't even know how he can make weight because the pictures I see, he's like this jacked, huge dude. I think Hamzat's gonna have, I know Hamzat likes to bring fights to the ground a lot, but I think with a guy like Drake don't think he's gonna be as easy to bring to the ground as people might think. And I know I've read comment sections, I've read tweets. Hamzat is obviously the huge favorite here for a lot of different people. I'm actually going to go with DDP here, though. I think it's going to be a complete war, first of all. That's why I want to look, fights I'm excited for. I'm glad it's for the title, too. I'm glad, Hamzat finally gets the title shot that he's rightfully deserved. I know he's had some medical issues in the past, but, I think he's 8-0. I think Dricus is 9-0. Whoever loses this takes their first loss in the UFC. I'm going to go Dricus here. I think he's a huge, I really think he's going to be tough for Hamzat to take to the ground. I love his style of fighting. How you never know what he's going to throw at you. Obviously, with this being 25 minutes, I think we could see a decision here. Specifically with DDP, I think so. He had the decision win against Strickland, the chokeout against Adesanya, and then another decision against Strickland, which that was a complete war. But DDP's been in a lot of wars. He's familiar with it. So is Hamzat. Hamzat's ground game, like I said, is amazing as well. I just think DDP here is going to give him a struggle, actually wrestling DDP to the ground. I don't know if you've seen the video too. DDP had like 6 dudes trying to take him down. They couldn't take him down. It was actually kind of crazy because people see those videos. I saw the comments. They're like, oh, these guys aren't trying to take him down. They're just playing with him. But some of those guys in that video, there was like probably 5 of them that were actually like, trying to take him down. And he's just this huge muscle fucking dude. So excited for this. I'm going to take DDP here. I think he's going to win a close decision here, though. But I want your thoughts on this main event that we're both extremely excited for.
Yeah, I mean, Owen, I think that was a great breakdown right there. I think that was some great insight, what you just said, because I agree with a lot of it. This is something right now, like us even talking about it, like my heart is already like beating, and like I'm not even in the fight, obviously, You very rarely, especially in today's world of the UFC, get 2 guys in the heat of their prime fighting each other, and that's what you have right here. These guys are both in their prime. I don't think Hamzat's fought anybody like DDP before. I also don't think DDP's fought anybody like Hamzat before. I think whenever that cage door locks on Saturday night, those are going to be 2 guys at the very best of their career right now going at it. What a fight. What a fight, man. There's so many different ways this thing can go. How's Hamzat's cardio going to do? How much is DDP going to be able to stuff takedowns from Hamzat? What are things going to look like on the feet with Hamzat striking versus DDP's awkward style? I mean, this is honestly one of those things where I can see this going under 5 minutes or being exactly what you just said with 25. I feel like there's a lot of fights on this card that is very predictable. I feel like oftentimes in main events, you know what's going to happen. Last night, a lot of people said that if Duffy got it past the second round, Roman wouldn't have a single chance. That's exactly what happened. You don't know what's going to happen in this one. But here's my thing. I think Izzy's on the decline. I personally don't think that Sean Strickland is great. I think it is absolutely crazy that he was the middleweight champion at one point. But DDP can only fight who's in front of him. You know what I'm saying? Like if the UFC sends him a contract, that's all he can do is sign the contract. He can't absolutely pick whoever he wants. He picked Hamzat. I respect the shit out of that from him. A lot of these guys, they'll run away from a contender like Hamzat, especially somebody who did what he did to Whitaker. With that being said, I have not made a pick the whole week off camera. People have been asking about this nonstop. I've probably had 20 people ask me what I think is going to happen. I'm going to make my pick right here, Owen. I've saved it for this. And here's my reason. If I step in that octagon in Chicago on Saturday night and you put DDP across the octagon for me and you put Hamzat across the octagon for me, I would be more scared of Hamzat. And that's just the honest truth. I think he's more dangerous. I think he will know very quickly what he can do to Dricus in the first 20 seconds of the fight. If Hamzat comes out and DDP stuffs his takedown, DDP is probably going to have a good night because that's going to hurt Hamzat's confidence. I know how this guy goes. He's going to come out. He's going to go for that takedown immediately because he respects DDP, but he's going to go after him because of what he's done to everybody else. And everybody knows that. He's going to shoot in the first 20 seconds of the fight. And that's going to tell you what's going to happen. I do like your pick, though, too. I love DDP. I've got his coach's number. He was very nice to me one time when I spoke to him. I'm not saying that Hamzat's going to win this fight or DDP is going to win this fight. But if you lock me in the octagon with both of them standing across from me, I'd be more scared of what Hamzat's going to do to me. But expect an absolute war. I wouldn't want any other main event right now in the UFC to be in Chicago this Saturday where I'm going to watch than this one. I respect both of these guys. I think they both stand for great things. Hamzat gets a bad rap for being from the Middle East, and people think of what they think in the for the Middle East, especially Americans. But I mean, at the end of the day, the dude's a really good guy. I mean, he was brought to tears by a girl that came up to him, said, "Please help my brothers learn how to fight, protect me." He had a powerful speech after one of his wins talking about quit hurting the kids. We need to love this world. We need to keep everybody safe. I love both these guys so much. I'm so glad they're fighting, but I do absolutely hate at the same time that they are fighting. But I'm going to rock with Hamzat on Saturday night. If DDP wins, though, he's proved us wrong time and time again. So it's going to be a war.
Yeah, and when I talk to a lot of my friends about this matchup, actually, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday. This fight, like you said, it's honestly going to be hugely decided on takedown specifically with Hamzat. If he can take down DDP, it's going to be a huge issue for DDP. I think if DDP is able to, stuff the takedowns, I think DDP is going to have a nice night. But takedowns are going to be the huge, factor in this fight. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan, or I used to not be a huge fan of DDP, honestly, until that interview he had after his last fight against Strickland, where he said, Hamzat's next. Like you said, a guy like Hamzat, a lot of champions wouldn't want to see him in the octagon, but he has a great resume. He's undefeated. Glad he's getting the opportunity. These are two guys I love now. Can't wait for the press conferences too. I like DDP's press conferences a lot. DDP's probably going to bring up so much crap about Hamzat. And, Hamzat, I don't even think he can understand much that DDP's even going to throw in front of him. But I know DDP's going to go after him. DDP probably has like a huge notebook of what he's going to say to Hamzat during this. And that's another thing I really like when pressers are like, I like when people like DDP are in these press conferences because they make it way more interesting than just them just talking about, not making it exciting. DDP has exciting press conferences. And yeah, we'll see. Obviously, a lot of these fights that we talked about can change because, hopefully everyone makes weight. There's always people that miss weight and then they got to change matchups. Hope we don't run into those issues. But just real quick, we talked about UFC 319 specifically. I just had a question I threw on, this little slideshow area because I feel like it's an issue that we're running into. I know we've talked about it kind of briefly on Instagram, but our, UFC lightweight championship, contender issue that we're kind of running into here because you have Armin, Zarukian, who hasn't fought since I think UFC 300. It's like 800 days ago, whatever. He could have had that shot in January, but just threw it out the window. Then you have a guy like Justin Gaethje, who's also in that, little, triangle, I guess, with Taporia. And obviously Charles got knocked out. He's out of the equation. How do you feel about I get frustrated when I see two guys like Armin and Justin fighting over who should fight for the title for like 5-6 months when we could have handled this by having them fight each other. I know Justin, I think's the rumor I know I've seen a lot of things to face Taporia at the end of the year. Me personally, I don't really want to see Justin go in there. I don't think I think that's very undeserved. He got knocked out by Max and then literally won 2-1 against Rafi. So don't think I'd consider him, but are you frustrated with the contenders kind of waiting in line almost, not fighting each other, but kind of just waiting for people to get hurt, like Max Holloway got hurt, so he's out of this equation. But how do you feel about the UFC lightweight, issue we're kind of having?
Yeah, Owen. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a great question. I think it's one of the biggest speculations right now in the MMA world. Um, this division, to me, at least the time that I've become a hardcore fan inside the UFC, it has always been the pedestal of high level guys that are game, guys that are going to do whatever it takes necessary to get to the top. It is very unfortunate now that we are having this issue with the division. Um, like you said with Armin, he had the shot in January, went away. Gaethje now beat Fiziev, ranked number 12 at the time, got knocked out brutally by Max at 300. You have Patty, who's coming off a win over Chandler. Chandler's 2-4 inside the UFC. You have Hooker, who was scheduled to fight Gaethje earlier this year, had to pull out because of an injury. So what really sucks is, and I never thought I would say this because I wasn't a big fan of him. I still do like other guys in the lightweight division more than him that are in the top 10 at least. Um, I feel bad for Ilya, and I'm going to tell you why. Ilya wants to be active. He wants to fight later this year. I believe it's in December, but there's nobody you can really look at besides Max who should rightfully probably get that title shot. I hate to say that, but there has to be some sort of contender fight, whether, and I don't even think that this is necessarily the UFC's fault. It's just been bad scheduling and bad timing for everything. These guys are going to have to fight each other. There's really not another way around it. I think you have to have some, maybe not a tournament play out because obviously that's unrealistic with the UFC. You can only fight one night a night or one time a night, but you got to have something with Armin, Hooker, Gaethje, and Patty to figure this out, man. And it's got to be figured out soon. Like 320's basically already booked. You've got Marab versus Corey, Pereira versus, um, oh my gosh, Ankalaev, uh, Roundtree versus Yuri. Like you can't put one of those fights on that card now because those are the top of the card, right? So now you're looking at Abu Dhabi 321. You got Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gahn. Maybe you can slide one in there, but this division's got to get moving, man. And it really is sad that some of these guys are sitting out now because there's so many other guys in the lightweight division that are game. I mean, we already talked about a few of them um, that aren't ranked. Obviously, it is a little bit different. Whenever you are in the rankings, you can hold your spot a little bit more than guys that are outside the rankings. But there's so many dogs in the lightweight division, so many guys that are just so game. If you send them the contract, they'll sign that as soon as they open up the envelope, man. It's really unfortunate. If you're going to have Ilya fight before the end of the year, oh my gosh, man. Give him Patty. Honestly, give him Patty. And here's why. Armin hasn't fought since 300. Hooker hasn't beat anybody to be there. Charles is fighting Fiziev. And then who else am I leaving out? Gaethje beat Fiziev. Like, to me, that's not enough to get a title shot. Armin's got to prove himself. Gaethje's got to prove that he can beat somebody in the top 10. Hooker has to get that. I think you do Gaethje and Hooker. They both already signed for the fight. Why the fuck not fight each other? And then if you have to do it, do Armin versus Patty. But if you're going to give somebody a title shot before the end of the year, because you can't do it now. Well, I mean, we're in August. So if he's going to fight in December, you can't do it now. What card are you going to put that on other than Abu Dhabi? That's October. And they're probably going to be in a war. If you put lightweights against each other right now, those four guys, it's going to be a war. They probably can't turn around in 8 weeks and fight Ilya Topuria, number one pound for pound guy. Give him Patty, though. Patty will sell the most tickets. They have beef from the past. He went in the octagon and already had a face-off with him. Why fucking not? I know his win was over Chandler. A lot of people say that's undeserving. Chandler's 2-4 in the UFC. I realize Chandler's had a lot of hype behind him that's starting to derail a little bit. But if it's honestly my opinion, give him Patty for those 3 reasons. That's it. That's what I got. Next year, though, if you're going to hold Ilya till next year, give him Max Holloway. 100%. Max Holloway deserves it when he's healed.
Yeah, and I was just about to, bring up Max for a second before we kind of wrap up here because, I know Max always he has the hand injury. He has like I know I don't like to see like the immediate not immediate rematches, but I don't like to see like the short, obviously he fought Taporia almost a year ago, like 2 months, probably like 10 months ago he fought. I don't really like to see rematches that quick, but Max's resume at the moment would, he took out Justin, lost to Tapor, and then he took out Poirier in his retirement fight. Max is and I guess another issue is the Tapor Islam thing is, going to play a role in here as well because no matter who, Islam's rumored to fight in November and MSG. Then you have Tapor who's fighting at the end of the year. And then I assume from there they're going to try to fight each other, which kind of just leaves the lightweight title in a tough spot because I know once Max is healthy, Max is going to be right back in that title contention no matter Max doesn't care who thrown in front of him. He'll fight anybody to get a title shot. And I think Max looked really good in that last fight. He loves this lightweight division. He's quick. I'd love to see that rematch against Taporia. I just really don't think if Taporia fights at the end of the year, I think the Max versus Taporia is off the table at that point. Then the issue would turn to Taporia versus Islam because I think that's what Dana's trying to do. I think that's why he's having them fight so close to each other as well, so that they can start planning whenever they go at it. But hoping that Taporia Islam really doesn't affect the lightweight title because lightweight has so many contenders, and I hope they don't really screw around with that and just have support. I know the UFC they don't like doing those they don't like doing those fights where both the guys have the titles walking in. So I'm assuming they would make maybe Taporia drop the belt if he goes up a division. I don't know what they're gonna do at that point. I think that Islam's going to fight in November. Taporia is going to fight at the end of the year. No matter where they go from that point is where they're going to go. Obviously, I love Max always. One of my favorite guys. I can't wait for his return, whenever that is, probably February, March. Yeah. I mean, we have UFC 319. You're going to it. I'll be watching. I honestly I might go down to my, Connor Matthews usually runs some, of these events at his gym. So I might see if he's running this one and then I'll go down there. But either way, I'll probably, purchase the cards. Well, I don't usually purchase them full out. I usually just, grab a bunch of friends. We split these cards, but UFC 319, specifically excited for this. Max, thank you for joining me as always. This was the first time I've done, UFC predictions. We'll probably do way more of these in the future as we get to 320, 321, as, the cards start rolling here. Obviously, we'll plan that down the line, 320s, the next huge one we got coming up. But to get to that point, we got to go through Chicago. So for anyone watching this, make sure to follow Max. He's on Instagram, YouTube. He runs interviews just like myself and Anthony. So we appreciate him coming on. We have a lot of, we have fight week coming up, lots of stuff to repost, lots of posts to make. So before we wrap this up, Max, do you kind of want to just tell the people where they can find your, platforms?
Yeah, man, I really appreciate that, Owen. And me and Owen are really going to just kind of form a partnership. I mean, at the end of the day, in the world, guys, not even just YouTube, but like in life in general, you got to help other people. If you're not going to get to the top by yourself, you got to be willing to, be friends with people, give people opportunities to get to meet them. Me and Owen have never met in person, like I said, at the top of the hour, but me and him have really formed a good friendship over this, and we're going to continue to look to help each other. So before I get into that, Owen, about talking about handles and stuff, I really appreciate you. You could ask anybody else in the world today to come on here and be a guest. I appreciate you choosing me, man. That's an honor. It was really cool to come on here. I absolutely love the setup. I might have to start doing something with StreamYard in the future because I absolutely love your setup, bro. That's something that I need to probably fix on my end. Mine looks a little bland, but I really appreciate our friendship, brother, and I hope we get to do this again one day. It'd be an absolute honor to come back on. You guys can catch me on Instagram at max.warren. I get spelled right there. I know it's really funky, but that's how it's pronounced and that's how it's spelled. And then my YouTube channel is Hawk Sports YouTube. Started in 2020. Just started doing UFC interviews about 4 months ago. So that's pretty much it, though. Looking forward to the event. It's going to be an absolute banger. I'm going to be talking to Owen throughout it. I'll keep you guys updated, and let's just continue to get to the top. Make sure you guys sub to Owen Over the Top Talk. I know a lot of you guys are WWE fans too throughout the world. It's been a big year for them with John Cena's retirement tour, people coming back like Brock Lesnar. I keep my eye on it. I just don't watch WWE, but, follow the man. He absolutely puts it together with reels, puts out great content, gets up-and-comers as well, not just UFC fighters. So make sure you guys check out Owen too. He's a great guy.
Perfect. Just before I wrap it up here, you mentioned John Cena, he'll be having his last match in Massachusetts and end of the year. So trying to plan that out. I'll have that content, I'll start, planning that. We'll have great content coming up. Me and Anthony are going to go to John Cena's last match, which should be, I think, in TD Gardens. So we're looking forward to that. Appreciate everyone who watched, whether it was TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. We appreciate you all. I saw someone just sub to me, so we appreciate that. Hope you guys enjoyed, and catch us in the next interview that we post, or WWE. I don't really have the schedule with me, but we'll see what happens. But thanks everyone for watching, and hope you guys enjoyed this live stream that we ran here.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys for tuning in.